What's going on, everyone? Pilot Manny here with the RC Plane Addict. Thank you for coming and seeing my videos. Welcome subscribers and new viewers. It's really humbling to see all of you returning to check out my content and to see what I have to show you, where I share my passion and my addiction to flying RC models. So today is pretty cool. I'm going to take you to the bench today down in the shop, and we're going to be doing something a little different. So I don't know about you, but crack-ups definitely happen when you fly. It's something that's just part of the hobby, and as terrible as it is, we always have to see past it and look forward and try to figure out, how can I keep flying? Well, today I'm going to show you how to build a wing using very common products that you can get from the Dollar Tree, with foam board and popsicle sticks and barbecue skewers, hot glue, poster board, super cheap stuff. It's going to build a super strong wing. It's going to get you up in the air, and you'll be happy to see it. So let's go check out the shop and see what I got. All right, guys, so we're back at the shop, and what we have here is the Flight Test Simple Cub, one of my favorite planes, although I sometimes call it the problem child of my hangar, simply because, well, let me not even get into it. But what I want to talk about is how, in case you get into a problem where you lose your wing, like I put this guy into a tree accidentally, and I was able to repair the wing, thank God, and the fuselage survived pretty well. But in case you need to replace a wing, I'm going to show you a few really quick things that I like to do to get my plane back up in the air within, I would say, an hour. And it's really simple. You only need a few simple things. So let's take a look at what you need. You can go to Dollar Tree and get yourself some poster board, foam board, find yourself a good knife, get yourself a good ruler. I like using these metal Westcott rulers with like the backing. They stick very well. Hot glue. Don't forget your glue sticks. You're going to need a pencil and maybe an X-Acto knife. Maybe. We'll see if we need that or not. Okay, so what am I going to do with all these things? So here's the wing off the plane, and the very first thing you want to establish is the cord. Now what we're going to do with the cord is we're going to use that basically as a base to start with your wing. And the next thing you want to kind of think about is, well, what do I want my plane to do? Do I want it to act the same way that it's been acting with the original wing? Or do I want it to do some different things? Now this plane in particular is terrible at any type of inverted flight. And I would love to see this plane be a little bit more acrobatic, even though the Cub inherently is not an acrobatic plane. So to do that, I'm going to make a wing that is the same shape, the same length, and the same width as this original wing. The only difference is going to be the airfoil. So this is a classic airfoil that Flight Test uses, okay? And it is a very popular and stable wing. It's got dihedral, which means that it does kind of like raise at the tips to give it this kind of self-balancing act. However, it provides a very positive kind of attitude so that if the wing does go upside down, it's going to want to drag the plane down. And that's not what I want. I want more of a stable attitude, no matter the orientation of the plane, whether it's inverted or whether it's upright. And to do that, I'm going to go to the KFM-4. So the KFM-4 wing is a wing that is symmetrical, where you have a step on the top and a step on the bottom. And I'm going to show you how to do that so that no matter what orientation the plane is in, it's going to be very stable, it's going to be very fast, and it will provide the lift that I need when flying my plane. So the first step is to measure your cord. So we're going to take our ruler here, and we're just going to kind of measure how wide is my wing from the leading edge to the very end, okay? And I'm going to include my ailerons because I do count my aileron as part of my wing cord. And my wing cord from here to here is a little under 8 inches. So now whether you're using inches or centimeters, this is about 20 centimeters, okay? So that's a very precise measurement that I can use using my ruler, and I'm gonna take that and I'm gonna transfer it over to my poster board. Now, in the sake of time, I've kind of went ahead and measured out the 20 inches in cord, and this is half of my wing. So again, because the stretch of the wing is actually really long, sometimes it's easier just to break it into two. So take the entire length of the wing and divide by 2. It's that simple. So the division on this wing turned out to be 19¼ inches. So from here to here, it is 19¼ inches. And from here to here, which is the cord, that's going to be 20 centimeters. And I know I'm mixing measurements, inches, centimeters. Sometimes I do that. What can I say? The next thing you want to do is find the center. So the center of this bad boy, obviously 20 divided by 2 is 10 centimeters from here to here. And that's that light line you see in the middle, okay? The next thing I did was took my ruler and I measured from the center to either side a 1/2 inch, okay? So now I have this like 1/2 inch mark that kind of, well, really 1 inch wide, from the center, 1/2 inch on either side. And what this is going to do is, when I transfer this to the poster board, is it's going to let me kind of use this space to strip the paper off and then make that the folding point, as you're going to see later, for the second piece of foam board that's going to wrap the first piece of foam board to give me that nice airfoil. All right, so let's take a look. All right, here is my foam board. I went ahead and I traced everything over from my template onto my foam board, and using this makes things very, very fast. I don't have to keep measuring. It's already measured out. I just have to kind of trace it over. So as you can see, I have 3 pieces that I'm going to cut out. The first 2 pieces are going to be the first wing, and then the third part is going to be part or half of the second wing. Obviously there wasn't enough space because you do need 2. So just so you can picture what's going to happen, I have for one wing a cord, and then the part that wraps it to give me that nice airfoil for the step on the top and the step on the bottom for my KFM-4 symmetrical wing. So I'm going to use my ruler, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this out. All right, there are my 3 parts from one board. I'm going to take the cord for the second wing and set that off to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and deal with the first wing. So this is going to be the center of my first wing, and then this is going, like I said, to be the wrapping of it. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to take the paper off the middle section by simply taking a very shallow cut onto both sides. Peel that paper off. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start to bend. So now to do this, we want to kind of like make sure that the board or the foam bends where we want it to. So I'm going to use my ruler here, and I'm going to put it right in that center, where that center line was. And I'm going to go ahead and just hold it down and sort of just start the flexing process. We want to go really slow with this. We don't want any crinkles in our paper. So just take your time with it. Kind of just work it around. Make sure you have a nice flat palm. Kind of just pull it up slowly. you want, you can get your whole arm under there. Make sure you're holding that roller there to make sure you're guiding the bend. Okay. Once we have it started, we can kind of just start to help move it along here. Sometimes what I've seen people do is they'll actually make a score cut right in the middle, so it tells the paper where to bend. And you could do that too. I found this process to work either way. And you want to go slow with it. Take your time. You don't want any crinkles in that paper. I think for the sake of time, I am going to just kind of give it a little bit of a score in the center here. Again, a nice shallow cut. You don't want to go through the other side. Okay, and that'll help the paper. Help it bend where you want it to. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take our piece here and we're going to fit it right in the center, right up against that line for the rest of the way. I'm going to bring it right on down, just like that. Just going to hold it there for a few seconds, help it kind of form, hold its shape. That looks pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and apply some glue onto this part here. Make sure you have plenty of glue for this. I'm going to insert that piece of board right back in the middle there. And we're going to kind of bring this back down on top of it. Just like that. Hold it there for a good minute. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and lift it up. Go to the other side. Repeat the process. What I like to do is kind of leave that on the bottom and just fold right down. Hold it again for another minute. And there you go. That's one very solid wing with a step on the bottom and a step on the top. Now you notice that the steps aren't exactly even, and that's okay. We can dial that in later, very last minute. But that looks really good. And this is incredibly strong. Okay, one half of the wing is done. Let's move on to the second half. All right, we got both wing halves done now. So as you can see, this wing is coming together nicely. It's going to be a pretty good stretch across. Now, right off the bat, I see that obviously the steps don't match up, and I'm not worried about that just yet. Again, I told you we're going to address that towards the end. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of right-siding it just to see which side matches best. So at this point, there is no top or bottom. What really matters the most is that these edges here join flatly. And what I like to do sometimes is take some sandpaper and just sand down the ends, just so that I know when they meet, they're going to be nice and flush together. So let's go ahead and do that. And again, what we're looking for is when it comes down, it's nice and flush against the surface. We get that nice flush surface. We're going to do that for both wing ends. Perfect. That looks really good. Okay, so what we're going to go ahead and do now is join the wings. And we're just going to do that with a little hot glue. I'm going to put it right here in the center. I'm going to run it right down the middle. Just like that. Maybe a little on these edges here. Make sure nothing gets on the table. And I'm going to join them. Remember, you want to keep the pressure on the top here because these are not going to be on the bottom because you have a step on the bottom. So that's important to remember, okay? Don't push down here because you may separate the seam, and we want to make sure that these seam together really, really well, okay? Looking at the leading edge, make sure the leading edge is nice and tight. And that looks really good. So we're just going to kind of let that dry for about a minute. While that's drying, we can put a little tape just to hold it in place. I have some tape here, just kind of put it on my clothes, take a little bit of the stick away, just kind of hold it. I'm going to flip it. I'm going to add some hot glue to these seams. Make sure that the seams stay nice and tight together. I'm only adding hot glue to the back seam at the moment. I have plenty of scrap. I'm just going to kind of just push that glue right into that joint there. I want a nice, good seam. Now's a good time to decide where the top of your wing is going to be. So, me personally, I always look for the ends that kind of match together the best. It doesn't really matter. Again, it's a symmetrical wing, and we haven't really decided where we're going with it. On the top wing, we are going to want to seam both the top and the bottom of it, or the front and the back of the wing, with hot glue into that seam. Just make sure that it's nice and put together. Again, with our squeegee, we're just going to kind of slide that right across the edge there. Make sure it gets right in there. Give it a minute or so to dry, and we should be good. Okay, now we're going to start giving this wing some shape. As you can see, it is just a very flat wing. There's literally no shape to it whatsoever. But if we take a look at the original wing, it's got these nice round ends. It looks beautiful. And I kind of want to mimic that in this. So this is our leading edge here. Okay, so what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to definitely give that leading edge a nice rounded look. So I'm going to go ahead and just line this up. Just like this. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect, but the ends do have to kind of obviously go to the ends. And we can use your ruler if you'd like to kind of just line it up. And this is the fun part because you can kind of eyeball this. There's no exact science to it. So I'm just going to kind of take my ruler and make sure that it's straight up and down. Okay, and that this does meet the very end, which it does. Okay, and that also the back meets the back, which is what I want. All right, and then I'm going to take my pencil and I'm simply going to trace out my shape. Again, this is not an exact science, people. Don't go crazy. Right? So it looks like I'm going to be cutting out about that shape on that side. I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to do the same thing to the other end. Remember, your leading edge is that top step. I'm going to take my ruler again. If you have a square, okay, or a triangle, you can use that as well to kind of help line things up. We want to make sure that the trailing edge and the leading edges are matched up. Okay, and everything is nice and lined up. And again, I'm going to just trace out my shape here. I should fall right off the ends. Don't be afraid to mess up. This wing is very forgiving, and what are we dealing with after all? Some Dollar Tree foam board. Okay, so there's my shape for my wing. I have these nice rounded edges, and I'm going to head and just take my knife, and I'm just going to start cutting them out. Go slow. You don't have to press hard. With a nice sharp knife, you should be able to get through this foam board without resistance on a few passes. Okay, if it doesn't want to come, don't force it. Just follow your knife through. All right, there's one edge. Now let's go ahead and do the other. Remember, don't be afraid. Just dealing with foam board here. Just follow your shape, keep cutting around in that semicircle. All right, there's that nice rounded edge. And go ahead and work on the other side now. Now, if by chance you are perfectly content with a rectangular wing, it'll fly just as good. You do not have to do this stuff. This is simply just being OCD here and making this wing look as close to the original as possible. All right, just to finish it off, I'm gonna take some sandpaper and just kind of clean my edge. There you go. A nice rounded wing. The very last thing I like to do with these wings before I start preparing them for paint jobs and before I start giving them anything extra that needs to be done, like say aileron surfaces, is I want to go ahead and just make sure that these ends, because they are now exposed, are seamed over with some hot glue. So I'm just going to apply some hot glue in the center here, and hot glue basically all over every layer of foam board. A very, very thin bead. Again, I'm just using this to help seam the ends, because now that foam is exposed. And I'm just going to take my squeegee. I'm just going to kind of just run it along the end there. And just take off all that excess. And this is going to give that wingtip a lot of life. We're going to go ahead and work around the whole wing. Super thin bead. Last section is going to be this little wingtip here that we cut. And again, for every layer you put a line of glue. Now that foam is no longer exposed, which is pretty solid. Okay. Starting to look more like a wing now. Let's see how it looks on the plane. Nope. Not too bad. Not too bad indeed. We're getting closer. We're not there just yet. So one thing you may notice when we line this plane up is it's not sitting flat on the plane. There's like gapping. And we don't really want that. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cut into that foam and take off that step on that layer there. And these are just small adjustments you have to do every time you make these wings. It's not even that big of a deal. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a ruler and we're just going to measure the length of this, how wide this piece is. I'm going to go in centimeters so it's easier to kind of measure. So this is about 6 centimeters. Yep. So if I'm centering this on the plane, that means I'm going to go 3 centimeters from the line in either way. And then I'm going to go ahead and take it away. Now this is the top. I know it's the top because this is seamed over with glue, whereas this side is not. And I did that purposely because, again, we're going to be taking this off. So I'm going to go ahead, put my ruler down, and I'm going to measure 3 centimeters from either side and mark that with a pencil. And again, this is going to give me a nice slot for my plane to sit down on the fuselage. If I measure from end to end, we're at 6. Perfect. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut just down to the level of this top piece, and then I'm going to cut it across to take the whole section out. And that section should be right about there. And that should give me a nice slot for this to sit into. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just get under there and just start lifting up. And if you want, you can even start with the paper and peel that paper off on those sections there. The glue on the inside is going to want to hold that foam down and give you a little resistance, so just go slow with this part. Most likely than not, if this is a wing that sits on top of your plane, you're going to have to do this process. If it's a wing that sits inside of your plane, you may have to modify this slightly differently, or you may not have to do anything at all. It depends on the plane you're replacing a wing for. And what I'm going to do is just holding down one side, just start peeling off that layer there. As you can see, it kind of pops out nicely. All right. Again, just go slow with this process. There's no rush. If you need to, just maybe that knife in there, just make sure it went all the way down. Okay. Like, use your ruler even to help guide it. Pull up that section. Just like so. Alright, let's go ahead and get this garbage out of the way. We'll test the fit on the fuselage. Alright, it looks like we're almost there. You need to take just maybe a little bit off on either side. All right, just give it another test fit. That is perfect. And now the wing is nice and snug and centered on this fuselage. And that's exactly what we want. Now this wing will not be glued. It's going to actually be rubber banded to the fuselage, which makes it nice and easy, but putting the wing on will be a snap because it literally is already centered now. Pretty cool. Okay, at this point we can now flip it over and seam over the middle. Another scrap piece of foam board. Push it right down in there. All right. At this point in the game, the wing is almost complete, and you have to make a decision. Do you trust in the strength of this wing, or would you like to put a spar in? So here's the underside of the wing, and what I have here is a spar, and this spar is just kind of salvaged from another plane. It's carbon fiber. It is crazy stiff, and what this spar will do to your wing is it'll give it a nice stiffness, especially right here in the core. The wing tips will have a little bit of flex, but as you can see right now, there is quite a bit of flex in this wing, especially in that center point. Now, even though the center point will be supported by rubber bands and held tight, it never hurts to give a little extra strength, especially in that middle part. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this piece here and probably go right down to the center of it, and then dig myself out a nice little channel so that I can slot this in and it's nice and perfectly straight and sunk into the wing. And then I'll kind of glue it into place, and that'll be the core of my wing. Alright, so here's my carbon fiber spar. It's 16 inches, so from the middle I measured 8 inches out, and it's a little bit, I guess it's about an eighth of an inch wide. So I went ahead and measured that channel out and dug down, and I went all the way to the very last layer. As you can see, this is the craziest part. You have to be very careful not to rip this, and you have to go from the bottom down so that you don't see it. And then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just put some glue in there to hold this in. I mean, this is a very tight fit, and that's exactly what I want. And that's perfectly centered. And the top of this just touches the very top of that. So it's inside of the core, and it's centered, and this should not impede how it slots onto this plane. So plenty of hot glue. And let's go ahead and insert that carbon fiber spar right into the middle there. Right. I'm just going to push this bad boy and work it all the way down. And I'm pushing against the table so I don't hurt that paper skin on the other side. That's super important. And then to kind of finish it, I just have some masking tape, and I'll kind of just run the masking tape over the edge here. All right. There we go. And now that wing feels really stiff. I mean, like, there is no flex in there at all. All right. So to get this wing ready to be painted, I'm going to use some fast drying polyurethane clear satin. I'm just going to brush it on with a foam brush, and then I'm going to wipe off the excess with some paper towel. And then I'm going to just put it outside for a good 15 minutes and let her dry. All right, so the wing is all primed and it's got this beautiful clear satin finish on it. As you can see, it's nice and dry. I still have to finish or fix this. I'm gonna do that with a little hot glue. But what I've gone ahead and done is I've primed this area to be painted with just some sandpaper, and I'm using this really, really fine grit sandpaper. I think this is like, I don't even know, 225, so it's super fine. And all I did was just kind of like rough over all the edges to make sure that like it's ready to accept the paint. I've also gone ahead and I've measured out my aileron settings. So if you look here, I've already traced it out, and using the ailerons on the original wing, I just basically took the same measurements and kind of laid them out here. And all I really need to do is cut them out now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my knife, I'm going to cut through here, and I'm just going to score these lines and break them. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a bevel just so that those ailerons can go up and down. All right, here we go. That was an interesting noise. Really simple, just cut through that. Then I'm just going to kind of line this up. Kind of just give a nice, easy cut through the paper, making sure not to go through. All I want is a score. I'm going to go ahead and do that on the other side as well. Then I can go ahead and break it. Alright, break it on the other side as well. Bend it all the way over. I should also note that this is the top of the wing, so all of my cuttings were done on the bottom of the wing, okay? That's important because obviously you want to preserve that like nice scale finish on the top, and then on the underside, well, no one really looks at that. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our knife here and just make a nice little 45-degree bevel. Take your time with this. You don't want to cut that seam between, okay? And then when you get it good, it should bend all the way through. So as you can see, it's still locked up. So we're going to kind of add just a little bit more of a bevel here. A nice sharp knife works really well with this. There we go. Okay, so that works out nice. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and do the other side now. Again, I have the aileron flipped up. I'm just gonna kind of give it that nice 45-degree bevel. Being careful not to cut the seam between the two. It's gonna need a little more. Perfect. Okay, so that comes up and down, nice and easy, no resistance. Same with the other side. Looks good. Okay, I'm gonna take my hot glue gun and I'm gonna seam over the cut now. Make sure you have a nice little squeegee with you. And do this, it's really easy. Just flip it over, put hot glue on the cut. And inside the joint. This is gonna make it really strong. Just take that and just kind of clean it right off. Just like that. And you can leave it open to let it dry. Do the same thing on the other side. Super thin bead. You don't need a lot for this. Less is more with hot glue. Perfect. All right, let that dry. A good 1 minute. And then we'll go outside and give it a nice paint job. Wow, look at this. All right, we're almost there now. So the wing is painted. It looks great. All the edges are nice and clean. I think we are ready to start getting this thing together. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and measured where the servos went on the original wing, and I kind of just put a little mark there to kind of show where I wanted the servo to go, and then I just kind of traced it out. So for my servos, they're going to be laying down on their sides. So this guy's going to go like right there. This guy's going to go like right here. Okay, and then the trailing edges, or these servo wires, these leads will all go to the center to be plugged in into this channel here, right? And then I have my control horns, which are here, and those are going to kind of be slotted right into these parts here, and they'll line right up. And I've made these little rods, these control rods, doing just simple bends. These are like simple Z bends that I made with my locking pliers here, and that's super easy to do. All I did was kind of eyeball it. Made my first Z-bend, eyeballed where this is going to be, kind of put my finger there and made my second bend, Z-bend there, and that's basically how that went. So easy peasy, right? And then obviously I can adjust everything just before I kind of hot glue everything together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm start cutting out these holes so I can put my servos into the wing, and I'm only going to go one level deep. That way they stay nice and I guess secure within the wing. I don't have to worry about it sliding around. And then I'll go ahead and continue the build process. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do here is put in these guys. So just so that you see what I'm doing, I'm going to kind of make these slits. But first I'm going to go ahead and just insert this push rod into the control horn and just line it up to where I think it's going to go, which is right about there. Get my X-Acto knife, make myself a cut. Just going to go right about there. I'm just going to kind of push that right down into it. I'll make sure this seats right in. Okay, and it does, and everything is nice and flush. Yep. And go ahead and put some glue into the slot and just seat it straight down. And what I'm looking for is for that aileron to be nice and level. Looks good. I'm gonna go ahead and do the other one. That looks good. Go ahead and put a little glue in the socket. Make sure everything's nice and level, and it is. This guy keeps popping off. I'm not certain what's going on here. This is just a little back brace for the rubber band so it doesn't crush the foam. That's all that really is. There we go. That looks pretty good. All right, let's plug it in. See how it fires up. That looks great. Oh, put it down on the ground here so you can see it. Yeah, it looks pretty cool. So the ailerons are turning in the right direction, and everything seems to be working pretty good. So that's about it. All right, guys, well, that's it. I apologize about the length of this video. I really didn't intend for it to be close to an hour, but I suppose building a wing from scratch without any plans, just what you have, it's gonna take a little bit of time, but at least you could do it in a day. So you don't have to wait that week in shipping for your new wing to arrive. You can actually just bake one right there on the spot and get back and flying while you're waiting for your wing to arrive. So I really hope you liked this video. Be creative. Use what I show you and hopefully move forward with it, because like me, I'm still growing and I'm just an amateur pilot. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more of this content, subscribe. If you have any comments or suggestions, hit me up with a message, and have a great time, guys. Cheers.